Are rate cuts already priced in? That is the question that's probably on your mind. Yesterday, Bitcoin pumped to just below $95,000, and at the time of recording this video, we are back down to 92K. We saw a lot of spot selling, and now today is FOMC. Are we going to continue to dump from here, or are rate cuts going to fuel us to a much higher level? In today's video, we'll be talking about exactly this, going over the most recent Bitcoin price action, and I'll also be taking you through some of my trades. How am I currently navigating this market? If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. First and foremost, taking a look at Bitcoin on the shorter time frames here, you can see that we are continuing to chop around within this range, and the trend is still very much down. I have to remind you of that if you are currently trading this market. You can see here that we did essentially pump right to the top of this pre-established range, and we made it to that anchored VWAP, which is this orange line on the chart. We are now getting rejected right at the yearly open. This is not what you want to see. Remember what we discussed on the channel. My main target for a relief rally is somewhere around here, above $98,000, likely back above $100,000. However, as I've been very, very vocal about, I think it will take time for us to get remotely close to those levels. The reason I say this is because we keep on getting rejected at the yearly open. We cannot ignore this fact. Every single time that we've had the opportunity to flip it as support, we have failed. Now, it is true that the more and more times that we test this region, the higher the likelihood that we can break through. But for any new longs in this market, I would want to see us reclaim the yearly open, which is right around $93,500. If Bitcoin cannot manage to hold above this level, it is highly likely that we will continue to chop around below the yearly open. Now, you need to also understand that bottoms take time to form. I feel like I've been repeating myself on this topic. However, this doesn't necessarily have to be the bottom. There is a chance that we can go ahead and bleed much lower as more and more aggressive longs start to enter the market. Now, something you need to consider here is that we still have that CME gap, which is right around $89,400. Now, keep in mind, this is a relatively small gap, all things considered. Normally, we have those gaps of a few $1,000s, but in this case, it was literally $400. And so while I do expect it to be filled, it may take time if we don't start trending down in this direction. That being said, though, after the big wick all the way up to around $95,000, just below that level, we are seeing some rejection here. We know that we're likely going to get a 25 basis point rate cut. This is essentially priced in my opinion. So if we get the rate cut that we've been anticipating, I'm leaning a little bit more neutral to bearish, simply because of the pretty explosive price action that we got yesterday and the rejection that we're seeing right now. However, if we get a surprise 50 basis point rate cut, then I think that would be extremely bullish, and Bitcoin would likely break to the upside from this range. And then, of course, if we don't get rate cuts, then I think we will absolutely capitulate lower, and we would probably tag the lows below $80,000. That might sound dramatic, but guys, the odds are here that we're going to get those rate cuts. You shouldn't be that concerned. We will see some shorter term volatility here, as we saw already starting yesterday, but if you're not a trader, I would highly recommend to just sit on your hands at this point in time. Speaking of trading, here are my current trades. You remember that I entered a long when everyone was freaking out near the lows. I am still holding on to this position, and it has been paying me dividends. You can see that I'm currently sitting around $70,000 in profit. However, because I don't want to risk more, I've already secured around 300K, by far my best trade of the year. That being said, I am also in some other positions. I actually shorted Zcash, and I'm currently sitting at around a $10,000 loss, which is seemingly insignificant compared to my other positions, but that's how you can approach this market with proper risk management. You won't win them all, but when you do have conviction, you can size into a trade a little bit more than you would with others. This one was a smaller percentage of my portfolio compared to this one, of course. Naturally, I'm just waiting to see what the price action can give us, but the reason I'm still holding on to this trade is because I do think we can go ahead and bleed lower. It all depends on, of course, the outcome of the rate cuts, which are pretty much already priced in, but more importantly, the FOMC economic projections and the overall Fed press conference. What is Jerome Powell's tone? If he spooks the markets, then naturally we will bleed lower from here, and I actually think that we could reject, as we've been seeing from the top of this range, below the yearly open. I want us to claim the yearly open as support, to be perfectly clear. But the market doesn't give a crap about what I want, because I stand to benefit a lot more if Bitcoin does continue to pump from here. You can see that I'm just going to continue to hold on to this position. Reminder, all of my trades, wins and losses, are shared in my premium group. If you want an honest trader that shares all of his wins and losses, and you want to see how I approach the market, you have the first link in my description down below. It brings you to my free premium group. And the only requirement to join is that you've signed up with one of my affiliate exchange links and you start trading on there. My two favorite options are Bluffin and Velto. Bluffin is my go-to centralized exchange, but I also have a new partner, which is Velto, which is a decentralized trading platform. This allows you to take control of your own funds if you don't want to be trading on a centralized exchange, and they tend to have more significant fee reductions compared to SEXs and also compared to other decentralized platforms. So if you haven't already, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and sign up on Velto. Reminder though, it's not as simple as a centralized exchange, but if you're used to self-custodial wallets, you'll definitely like this one. It's the third link in my description down below. Now, let's get back to the charts. So Bitcoin is currently sitting right around $92,000, and these are how my trades are currently looking, all while it seems like we continue to try to form this bear flag. Now, a lot of people have been giving me flack about saying that this is a bear flag, but guys, the trend is still very much down. I want the price to go up. I really do. I stand to benefit so much from it if we do. However, I cannot ignore the fact that we continue to get rejected right at the yearly open. This is not what you want to see ultimately. And let's take a look at the shorter time frame liquidity. You can see that there's a lot of longs piled in from below $90,000. That being said though, we cannot ignore the longer time frames, and most of the liquidity is indeed built to the upside. Speaking of overall liquidity, I wanted to talk about also the open interest in this market. Here's the thing. Since we had that massive liquidation event, open interest continues to plummet. You can see here, it's this blue line on the chart, and essentially we have just been going straight down. This is actually healthy for the market, in my opinion. This is what we want to see, not so much leverage in the market. Now let's also take a look at the Coinbase Premium. One thing that you need to keep your eyes on is the fact that it is starting to turn a little bit red here. There's some spikes of green, but ultimately we're getting a little bit more red than we've been seeing over the past few days. Usually when this is green, it's positive. It does support the Bitcoin price, but at this point in time, seeing a little bit of red going into FOMC, it makes sense to be a little bit cautious here. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is on yesterday's move, we did see some pretty aggressive spot selling. The move was mainly perps driven, which means people entered leverage longs, and we saw spot offloading. Don't get me wrong, just because perps led the move upwards, it doesn't mean that it is inherently bearish. However, we want to see some spot buying as well, and that is not what we've been seeing. We saw perps lead the move up, and then we got spot selling into that high right around the anchored VWAP just below $95,000 and into that yearly open right around 93.5K. Something that you definitely need to consider here. For more bullish price action, we want to see a lot more spot buying, that is. And the other thing that I want you to understand is that going into FOMC, typically we get some bearish price action. The last 4 FOMCs we have been dumping. That being said, it doesn't mean that we're just going to absolutely capitulate. Maybe it means a 5% move down or a few percent move down, and then we pump afterwards, as we've seen time and time again, or we get the massive capitulation that we saw last time around. But I'm not necessarily banking on this. I think that it'll likely be a more neutral to bearish move in the shorter term, and then we can continue to establish our bottom that we've been discussing on the channel, and I will continue to trade the market that is right in front of me. And we do have some worrying signs. CZ came out and said that there may be a crypto super cycle in 2026, and we also have Cathie Wood that said Bitcoin may have bottomed. Key words here, may have. You're not really putting yourself on the line when you say that this may happen. Will it happen or will it not? But from a trading perspective, I tend to be a little bit more cautious when I hear things like this. And taking a look at the ETFs, you can see that BlackRock did indeed offload yesterday, but overall, it was a positive inflow day for the Bitcoin spot ETFs, and we'll have to see what happens today with FOMC. And if you're watching this video after FOMC, it's highly likely that the main move has already occurred, but I would be expecting some continued volatility after the fact as we are heading into the holidays. And then this brings the last question on everyone's mind. Are we going to be getting a Santa rally after this FOMC? Whatever price action happens in the next few days will likely shake out a lot of market participants, but can we continue to form that bottom and get a Santa rally? I'll of course be discussing this on the channel, but please remember that nothing that I talk about should be construed as financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, just a guy on the internet sharing his trades in the crypto market and his overall analysis. That sums up today's quick video. Remember, if you want to join my community, you do have that first link in my description down below. I have Bluffin and I also have Velto as exchanges for you. And of course, if you do want a simple tutorial on how to trade the crypto markets, you have my Bluffin leverage trading tutorial right here. I'll see you in tomorrow's video.